Buckle up for AEC Trailblazers, the Founders Files, where we crack open the stories of the brightest minds in the AEC startup scene. Forget institutional pitches. We're diving deep into the real personal journeys of these industry disruptors. Get ready for some casual chats firsthand.
Hello, and welcome everybody to another episode of the AEC Trailblazers podcast, where we interview the most amazing founders of the AEC. Here with us, we have Tim Rolling. Tim is the co-founder of Calctree. He's a seasoned engineering and business leader with a proven track record in the construction industry. By combining his engineering expertise with his strategic business acumen, he's leading the company's mission to revolutionize the way engineers collaborate and deliver projects. In his spare time, Tim enjoys exploring the outdoors through activities like rock climbing, snowboarding, scuba diving, and hiking. Tim, welcome to the show.
Hey, Valentin. Good to be here.
Did I miss something on your bio?
No, I think you got all of it, all the important stuff.
Man, I'm just jealous. So many outdoors things you can do there in Australia.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the perks, that's for sure. As long as you watch the snakes and spiders, you can have a pretty good time.
Sharks. Snake, spiders, sharks. Yeah, I was.
yeah. Otherwise, it's good.
Oh man, Australia is beautiful. What I always say is that you know that Australia is the country that has more AC entrepreneurs divided by their population. So that's insane.
Really interesting.
Yeah,
it's quite interesting. I guess there's a lot of like opportunities for improvement, I think, and relatively good ecosystem around like building companies, whether they're not, I wouldn't say necessarily in terms of like capital development and this kind of thing, but in terms of programs and opportunities and like awareness of the concept of starting your own thing and trying to solve a problem. There's a lot of that. So I guess I can see it. It makes sense. But I really would have thought that would be the US, I have to say.
No, I thought the same thing. Like most of the AC startups are based in the US, yes. But if you divide it by the population, then it's not the same number. It's a little bit higher on Australia. I think the second one is the US. The third one is UK, and the fourth is Norway.
Norway, yeah, actually that makes sense. Yeah, I've met a few Norwegian founders. I think they have really good like government support for like going and starting businesses and whatnot. So that makes a lot of sense.
And how was for you? I just want to hear the story. How did you become an entrepreneur? Like you always dream with having your own company, or how was the?
I wouldn't say I like always dreamt of having my own company. I definitely always like kind of wanted to do my own thing. Like I didn't really like taking orders from others. When it came to like, you know, like trying to change things. So I always had that streak of like wanting to go out on my own. And I also like I've always been quite interested in like investing and finance and markets and that kind of thing. So that kind of I was always aware of, you know, how certain like the mechanisms to really make a difference in the world. And so, I mean, for me, the journey started with being an entrepreneur. Actually started trying to start a little data analytics consulting company. I was always doing like little consulting projects on the side, just like small businesses and charities and this kind of thing. And about like 4 years into my time at Arup, me and a buddy of mine, we started this little consultancy, just trying to like formalize some relationships with some non-for-profits in Victoria and Melbourne, and try to provide data analytics services, which is that really like a real gap in the market there, because you have these like organizations who are trying to do awesome stuff, but they're not really proficient in understanding and using the data that they have from their system. So that was quite interesting. We started doing some consulting projects there. That's when I realized that I was like, yeah, I definitely want to do my own thing, but my skill set, like in terms of like what's my edge. It's probably not in data analytics. It'd be more in the digital construction world. But ever since then, that kind of triggered the journey. And then I was looking into different ways that you could start a startup and how to like enter the world of venture capital and all that stuff. Eventually, probably it was COVID lockdowns, which really gave me the kick I needed to do something, because it sort of, in Melbourne, we had like, I think it was like the worst lockdowns in the world, which was fun. But it sort of got to the point where I was like, you look at yourself in the mirror long enough and you're like, okay, life's short, like time to roll the dice on something, like now's the right time. So at that point I was like, okay, I'm just gonna jump in the easiest and most successful route there is. And that for me was this, so Antler, which is this global VC, they run these incubators, which you can jump in and you basically commit full time. In the case of this one, they give you a bit of money to live, but you're effectively thrown in the deep end with a bunch of other people who want to found companies. And it's kind of like, it's like Shark Tank meets Love Island. To describe the experience, you're trying to like build relationships with people you never met, but also try and start businesses or come up with business ideas with them. So I went through that process, and at the end of that, came up with what eventually became Calctree. And we got a bit of funding from Antler to get started, and away we went.
But how did you come with the idea? Like, it sounds really, you make it sound easy, but I bet it was not easy at all.
It was not easy. If you ask my girlfriend, who was like, we were living in a 1-bedroom apartment at the time in lockdowns, and I was doing Antler on video calls. That was like the most stressful time of my life, I think, because it's just you're constantly under the pump to have like meetings with people and try and like befriend and also like build a business relationship with people, all from your lounge room whilst you're in lockdown. I think I had like 2 or 3 mental breakdowns. But in terms of the idea, like, I actually came into Antler wanting to do something around like digital twins or automated construction, which I'd spent a bit of time doing that kind of work back at Arup, and I thought, this is a really interesting space. I feel like I understand it, and I feel like there's some good like short-term and long-term opportunities in that space. So I went into Antler wanting to build that, but wasn't really able to translate that into a VC appropriate business, which i.e. not SaaS and not B2B. Like, it was like hardware and robotics. And as a first-time founder, like, I kind of realized pretty quickly that I probably don't have a shot at getting decent funding, let alone, doing a good job of this kind of business. So from then I started like, going through the dating game in Antler and meeting other people who are working on projects in the construction space, the digital construction space and engineering. And that's where I stumbled across Honor and Mahan, who eventually became a co-founders. And Mahan was working on, I can't remember what we called it at the time. He basically built like a website of like pretty, let's say, like simple looking engineering calculators for geotechnical engineering. And this was like a super old school looking website. It actually looked like it was on point for the construction industry or the engineering tools you'd expect to see. But it was like, at its core, like the problem that he was looking at and exploring was this issue of fragmentation of tooling in the engineering space. And that really resonated with me because I spent a lot of time at Arup doing like digital improvement stuff. And one of the things that we always struggled with was, well, how can we start to standardize some of our workflows, but still allow engineers to have the freedom to design with the tools that they want and with the processes that they want? So I always saw those two things as like divergent, forces in an engineering project, an engineering team, and saw that what Mahan was working on was kind of like a potential way to solve that issue, wherein you can like give engineering firms the ability to standardize process and standardize tooling, but with the freedom for engineers to actually do the work how they want to. That's kind of how the idea kind of developed itself through the process, like meeting and sort of turning the stone over probably thousands of times about this core problem. And then eventually where we landed was, something which looked more akin to what you would see if you logged into Calctree now.
I love how like you went through the whole process and you were like, first of all, honest with yourself, like, hey, this is my first startup. And it's a reality when you have to do hardware or robotics, you need a lot of money up front. And the reality is you might get it, but most likely if it's your first time, you don't have experience, or you don't know, business don't know you, it's really hard. So I love how you were like honest with you, and also with yourself, and also how you took your partner's idea on, like, it was a niche, right? He was working just on a really specific niche, and you decided to, hey, we can scale this up to the whole like engineering industry.
Yeah, I think, the sort of realities that, for the better or for worse, that going through a program like that is you quickly identify the, let's say, shortfalls in your approach, or in your individual skill set, or in the idea that you want to work on, which is a valuable thing, because it's much easier to change course at the early days. And yeah, I think that was definitely something that Antler saw in us when we became a founding group, was that, okay, we can see that, we've got an individual who's been working on this niche problem for, I think it was like over 18 months. But then you've got the different perspectives coming in from myself and Honor as well, who could say, yeah, we can take this core thing and actually scale it up across these different areas that we're familiar with. And I still think to this day, that's like our edge as a founding team. We have both that ability to go really granular and niche with the issue, but still see like, how is this going to work at like a broader scale, which I like to think is finding its way into the product.
Oh, interesting. And also, I think the problem you're trying to solve it's a problem that all the companies are trying to solve as well, or that everybody had tried, like a lot of companies have tried to solve in the past. Like if you think about, I don't know, even visual programming, right? Like it is something that Autodesk tried to do, or McNeil tried to solve as well. And but there was always a problem there, right? Because the bar is so high that every time you go to an engineering firm, there is only one or two guys who know how to use Dynamo, and then the rest of the people, they don't know how to even run it. Like they open it and it's like, what the hell is this? This is so complicated. It's just trying to throw, just raw visual programming or just programming to an engineer, and they're gonna say like, you know what, we don't know anything about this language. So how do you decide to go with a different strategy of, what, we want to make it scalable and robust, but at the same time lowering the bar for all the engineers? Because I think what you're doing it's kind of unique in that sense.
Yeah, I think that's definitely our like fresh approach. Is so the two key things that we approached from the beginning was, one, we didn't want to create something that would force engineers to throw away what they already knew and trusted. So that's why in the product, it's built around two integration types, spreadsheets and Python, because those are tools that people use every day, and they're familiar with them and they trust them. So rather than, like a Dynamo, which is a great tool, by the way, but rather than taking that approach, which is like, okay, you have to learn something completely new to get any value out of this product, we wanted to build Calctree in a way that anyone could pick it up and take something they've already trusted, but just make it better. So that's one. And then the other one, as you touched on it there, is making it really accessible. So low floor to entry, but high ceiling in terms of technical capacity. And that low floor is really important because, what I was seeing back in Arab, and what I think we've all probably seen, is that you get these pockets of expertise across these different tools in these engineering firms, which is great because you have like computational designers who are building really cool stuff. But the problem is when you try to scale any kind of small project on these niche tools out to the broader company, that falls on its face because everyone's like, well, I can't use this. Like I open up this Dynamo script or Grasshopper and it's noodle soup and it makes no sense to me. So stuff it, I'll just go back to my spreadsheet, right? So immediately you don't get adoption of that new tool that they've built across this broader group. And we feel that it's the adoption across the broader group, which is what the industry needs. It needs everyone to kind of level up to newer software, which allows them to get the benefits of, or to get workflows that you might see in like a software engineering team. So we built Calctree to be really simple, like Notion-esque tool that anyone can pick up and they're like, this is a page editor. I understand a page editor. So I can start to use it. And then boom, there's a spreadsheet there. Oh, I understand a spreadsheet. Okay, I can start using that. So you don't have to spend dozens of hours figuring out how Dynamo works or like visual coding works to use it. You can just get in and start using it. And that was, that's like a cornerstone of our product. And over the next 6 to 12 months, we're introducing more and more, I guess you could say, complex features. And the key thing for us is making sure that they're simple to grasp, but still give the ability to do like some pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, I think that's also a really valid point, because and we have seen a lot of companies failing on this on our industry, right? Every project is unique. Not even the same stakeholders work on each project, and the design is never exactly the same. And even if the design is exactly the same, the site is not the same. So the variables always change. And I think there are a lot of companies that try to, standardize, and standardize to a point that you can even, I don't know, put a couple of variables and get a design automatically with AI or something without doing anything. And the reality is our industry is not like that. It's not like other industries that, like the manufacturing industry, that you can do something that can be automatically generated and then produced. In our case, that's not the case. And I love the edge of you allowing people of, if you have something really custom, you can just automate it with our platform. And then if you have something that it's not really custom, but something that everybody can use, then you can just share it, and it can be like a workflow that anybody can use. I'm just curious, and going to the point, I'm really curious on the idea in the future is also to allow people to buy and sell these kind of workflows, or is always going to be like, just free sharing between companies?
So the idea and the vision since the very beginning, we're actually almost going to build this first, but we wanted to build a marketplace, and we still want to build a marketplace because I think, with our industry, there's so much variation. There is standardization, but it's only to a point. And then past that point, you need to get specific, and someone needs to spend a fair bit of time putting the effort in to build that automation or that tool. And so what you get in the industry is you get like a lot of like small pockets of like cool, interesting tools. And currently that realizes itself in like really advanced spreadsheets, Grasshopper scripts, or like these sort of niche products that charge like $10,000 for a license, but only get used once, but they save so much time that it's worth it for companies to buy it. And so we felt that like clearly there's a lot of supply of like different types of tools or variations on different kinds of tools. There's a lot of supply and there's a lot of demand, but currently there's no marketplace to connect the two. So we felt that with Calctree, one of the end destinations is to provide that marketplace to start to link things up. We actually wanted to build a marketplace first and kind of like have spreadsheets or Grasshopper scripts in a marketplace that then you could join the dots that way. But we felt that you wouldn't get a fluid marketplace because there's too much variance in the user skills required, i.e. there's a mismatch in capability between the demand side and supply side if you just start with Grasshopper and Dynamo. So we felt, okay, well, let's build out Calctree first, which is multi-year project, of course. But let's build out this platform that has this low floor and high ceiling that allows people to take crazy spreadsheets or awesome Python scripts and turn them into a usable tool, a digestible tool. Build that first, and then add the marketplace later, so that your supply side is solved and you remove this mismatch between skill sets. So we want to get to a point where we're providing a marketplace, and freelance creators or companies can build tools and then actually get value and perpetuity from those tools by selling them on a marketplace. And also hopefully start to chip away at some of these really expensive software costs for really niche tooling that hold up like innovation in design, which I think is a really big problem, particularly when you look at like cutting edge technologies like mass timber design. For a structural engineering example, it's really hard to find good calculators and tools for mass timber design. So you either pay through the nose or you design it from scratch. If you want to do that building, you design it from scratch. You pass that cost on to the project, and then surprise, surprise, it's a really expensive project, and nobody designs or builds in mass timber. So if you can create this marketplace where an existing tool that someone's built can be passed on and used again for a reasonable price, then hopefully we can see a scenario where you eliminate some of the restrictions on the ability to innovate because it's cheaper to get pre-built templates.
Yeah, and also even if let's say you have the infrastructure for free, you have the knowledge, you have the time and everything, you don't have the community, or you don't have the people, and that's the most expensive thing when you're building software, because it's really expensive to sell. Well, you have a startup, you know how it is, and I feel that having a platform that provides that as well, it's a big win for all the engineers out there that they already have a workflow and they want to sell it or share it. Sometimes it's about, I don't want to sell it. I just want to share it. So when people are not doing this over and over again.
Yeah, totally. I mean, like you look at like GitHub, Stack Overflow, like in the software engineering world, there's so many open source libraries which add so much value. Like we use some of them in the build of Calctree, and there's no price to entry. It's beyond just contributing back to the community, and that kind of communal nature is to the betterment of everyone. And we just don't have that in traditional engineering services. And I believe it's partially due to this mismatch of skill sets across different teams and individuals. So hopefully with Calctree, by starting to make it a bit more agnostic across different tooling, we can also start to build that community and get a bit of momentum behind it as well.
That's true. We don't share that much in our industry in general. I feel that, and I don't think because companies just want to keep that as a secret. In general, I don't see that. I think there are no means for that. Like generally an engineer will just do a calculation on an Excel spreadsheet, and they don't have a place where they can share Excel spreadsheets where people can put, evaluation on a rating on if it is good or not. So I do agree that we need a place like that in our industry for sure. But I'm curious on, you're working with a lot of engineers. Who are the ones that are more so far, right? So more interesting on Calctree.
In terms of like adopting it for usage, or in terms of the marketplace kind of angle?
No, adoption. I mean, early adoption.
Yeah, I think so. We're having conversations with companies from like all scales, I guess, like really small, like 1 to 10 employees, up to like the big guys. And there's interest and appetite at every level, but for slightly different aspects of the product. So, for example, at the smaller end of the market, typically people are looking more for like some templates that they can use, like they're using TEDs or something like that, but it doesn't have a specific tool. So they're talking to us and saying, hey, like, do you guys have a tool, or do you have a method to develop this particular tool that we could take and then start using on our projects? At the bigger end of town, they're more interested in getting review processes, version control, and collaborative development. So they typically have a lot of their own templates already, but they're locked away in these network drives and they're not accessible. They're not able to manage like usage and understand who's using what tool and when and on what project. And so the appeal of Calctree to them is a solution to that problem. They can take their existing templates in Python or spreadsheets, put them into the platform, then all of a sudden start to get the benefits of version control and review module and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's I guess that's the advantage of building a platform that has these different facets, is you can appeal to those different parts of the market. But as you can imagine, it also means that we have to develop a lot of different components that other tools don't necessarily have to do. So blessing and a curse in that way.
Well, but I think the fun part of building a platform that is so flexible as like yours is the fact that you never know what people is gonna do with it. Like I don't know. It might happen that in a couple of months, I don't know, electrical engineers are doing certain calculation because they they found this is great, and you suddenly are gonna see that, and it's like, whoa, like I never thought these kind of guys could use it in comparison, with a tool like, I don't know, Revit. Like there is only one use, right? Like in specific use, modeling and drafting drawings. With your tool, you never know, and I think like that's the fun part of the journey.
Definitely
not as fun for the engineers, right? For the software engineers, it's not going to be really fun because they're going to have to put a lot of effort. But
yeah, that's true. I mean, we're trying to build the platform in a way that like avoids that issue, where it avoids the issue of having software developers like constantly being reactive. We're trying to build proactively and build building blocks in the platform that solve those issues before they happen. But I was just going to say, actually, it is interesting. We had this one thing I didn't see coming was we had like this community of geotechnical and seismic engineers in Turkey start using Calctree like out of the blue, like unprompted completely. They started using Calctree to host like different data sets related to like the earthquakes that happened. I think it was 2 years ago now, or 18 months ago. And we just started seeing all this usage from different parts of Turkey. And we're like, what? Does anyone talk to anyone from Turkey? What's going on here? But it was just this kind of like community that popped up, and they found the platform valuable for hosting this information and sharing this information. And so that was pretty cool. That was pretty interesting. And hopefully we see more of that as we grow.
That's interesting. That's fun. Like, and then you can contact those people and you're like, why are you using our platform? How do you find us?
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, and a lot of lessons in it.
I do have to ask a question. I'm a software developer, so are you going to have an API?
Yeah. So we do actually have an API now, but it's pretty basic in terms of what's possible. So what you can do is if you create a Calctree page, then it's got some function on it, whether that function comes from a spreadsheet, Python, or you've just built it with native Calctree parameters. That page can become its own API endpoint, and then you can call that from like Grasshopper or Python or whatever, and use that as a subroutine effectively. So we had a couple of users who are doing pilot projects at the moment in some companies. Basically, they set up some sort of, I think they're half Calctree templates, the ones we provide, and then half their own kind of custom templates. They set them up, and then they were actually calling them from a Grasshopper script to tie them into a workflow that was part of like parametric geometry or parametric design. So that was pretty cool. And that, as you can imagine, like that API functionality is pretty basic. It's basically like you can send some data to the page. The page will process with that new data and send you back the output results. Where we want to go with the API is we want to make it full read-write API where you can, you could string up a workflow where you're pulling data out from an ETABS model, for example, or Revit, feeding that into a page, getting your data on the page, and then feeding that into the workflow on Calctree. So that's where we want to get to. But right now it's kind of limited, so we can basically save the tech team a bit of a headache.
Absolutely. I bet it's really complex, and security, and how you put layer of security in front of each endpoint and how you manage that. But just working on the idea, it's really cool because like we develop endpoints all the time, and it's not a simple thing. Like if you want to do it the right way with, the certificate and the security and the firewall and make it robust, then it takes so much time and cost. So having an infrastructure or an app that allows us to quickly test something, that would be I think you're going to lower the bar not only for engineers but software developers as well.
Yep. Yeah, and I think this is one of the things exactly that we wanted to do, and the way that we built it was hopefully what we're doing is we're lowering the bar. Yeah, exactly. So that someone who's maybe they're really good at Grasshopper but they've never really gotten into software development, they can all of a sudden, like by literally just copy and pasting a page ID, all of a sudden they're using an API and they're linking two systems together by using Calctree's API. So we hope that we've got it to like the most basic level or the most simple level, where it's really accessible for those users who are sort of on the cusp of being software engineers, but sitting mostly in Grasshopper and desktop platforms like that.
Yeah, and that happens a lot. Like I think it's really common to hear, hey, you're an engineer or you're an architect and you need to learn how to code. And me even being a software developer, I think that's stupid. Like sure, it's really cool, and if you want to become a software developer, let you do it. Just go ahead, but don't become a software developer because you're forced to, because there are no the right tools are not there. So I mean, you can do it, but it's going to be painful because you don't like it, and it's not something that is going to add too much value to your career because you're an engineer, and it's not going to allow you to make a much better design just because you learn how to code.
Plus, I mean, typically you don't have time. Like if you're a structural engineer and architect working on projects, like you don't have. I mean, you might have a couple hours spare a day to learn Python programming, but like you probably don't. Especially as the more senior you get, the less spare time you've got to do those kinds of things. So, yeah, I think the concept of people should move towards being able to code in order to work more like software engineers is a bit of a fallacy. It's just not realistic. And really, what I believe needs to happen is that software products need to move towards enabling people to keep working how they want to work, but provide them the tooling or the functions to operate more like software engineers or operate in an environment that gets you those certain benefits. So yeah, like telling your team, you got to learn to code. I think it's a short-term thing we're seeing in the market, or medium-term thing, which eventually will be overtaken by products just like meeting the market where they're at.
No, absolutely. Partially, we saw that happening with Dynamo and everything, but again, we need tools that are lowering the bar. And I was thinking, me as an architect, it's like me trying to, learn structural engineering, because you know what is I want to do things faster, and I want to do the whole thing, and well, it's not going to add too much value, and I'm not going to be really good at it. Like I'm an architect and I learn how to code, and I'm a good software developer? Not at all. I'm a shitty software developer because I've not been my whole life just working on software development, and it's the truth. I could be a good one, yeah, absolutely, but I will have to leave the whole industry and just concentrate on being a software developer, and life is too short. I don't have enough time for that.
Yeah, and like to build a complex system is it's years of experience. Like I remember right at the start, like I mentioned, Mahan had built like a first version of Calctree, which is kind of a website with some calculators on it. Like I had played around with Python, and we were kind of talking about, maybe we could kind of build the tech like between us, but we were completely wrong. And now we've built out our tech team, and we've got like some really talented devs who have been software engineers their whole lives, and they're building out the platform, and they're just like several epochs of ability beyond where we were at just trying to teach ourselves. So the reality is, it's not easy. It's a full-on profession, and to just kind of learn it so you're better at your job is, it's not. I don't think it's practical. It helps a bit. I think understanding Python helps for sure for simplistic stuff, but to really build out any kind of medium to advanced system, it's a full-time job at least.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But it's true, like that at the beginning to create a PLC or something, it's really cool that you as the founders did it, and it makes sense because you can understand the complexity. And when you have to tell a developer, you know what, you have to do like this feature, and they explain to you why it's going to take so much time, you can at least understand, right? That doesn't mean that you're going to become a software developer. But it's the same with everything, right? Like accountants or lawyers, you're not going to become a lawyer, but it's important you understand a little bit as a founder. So if a lawyer explains something to you, you're like, I don't like that, or I do like it, or that makes sense or not, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think that's a unique thing about being a founder, which is pretty interesting. Both a headache and also kind of cool is that you have to learn all this stuff like to a level to be literate in it, but not like know when you're past the point where you should be doing it, and you can hand it off. That's an interesting thing. And software is the first, at least for us, that was the first thing that we were like, we've got to get the more highly skilled people in for this.
That's true. You get to play or put different hats, and it's always fun. But there is for example, my case, I hate accountants. Anything related with accountants, I hate it. I don't want to. That is like, just tell me how much do I have to pay, and I will.
Yep.
Don't explain it to me. But I like finance. I don't know if you have something that you're like, I do this, but I don't like it at all.
That's really funny you say that. Actually, I did like a LinkedIn post the other week, and I was like, what are the pros and cons of starting a company? And one of the cons was like, it's fun to learn new things, but like there are certain things you just don't want to learn. And brackets accounting, like I can't stand it. Like I do like some of our finances and like do our financial tracking and this kind of thing. But the moment it gets to like the nitty gritty of like pay slips and tax returns and like all this stuff, it's just like, oh my God, I have zero interest in understanding this part of the world. But I do, and I do it because I have to. But yeah, it's not the funnest. Legal stuff's slightly more interesting, but probably in the same category.
Yeah, like I agree with that. Like, legal, like a little bit more interesting because it's a little bit more fun, I guess, to understand. Like, well, if I do this or that, I can win more money. But yeah, dealing with taxes and all that is like, I'm not gonna change my company because of this. Finance, you can, right? Like if you do certain stuff, you can make a lot of money. With accountants, like I don't think that's the case. At least not when you have a small, strata, right?
Yeah, I mean, if there's any accountants listening, like accounting's great, but it's not.
my girlfriend, she's the accountant of the company, and every time she explains, like, you have these 10 options, I'm like, you know what? Just tell me what to do. Like I'm stupid. I trust you. You're gonna do the best. Just tell me what to do.
Yeah, very similar. My girlfriend, she's a lawyer, but a completely different part of like not startup or anything. But she's definitely like, I've definitely like talked to her about it, and yeah, get to a point where I'm like, look, just tell me what should we do here? Like, what do I like? What's the right thing to do? Because I'm like, or drop the email, please, because I just can't do it.
where just give me the paper and I will sign it. Just that.
Yeah. No, we'd never do that. There's always checks and balances.
No, absolutely. Like, yeah, you want to keep your house, and you like, not because of your girlfriend, but because of business. Sometimes it's like, it always happens, right? That you sign something and then there is a little word or something that is like, but you told me here on the page number 28 and paragraph 6, and you're like, oh, I didn't. Yeah, that always happens, right?
Yeah.
Like, even if you read the whole thing over and over.
It's, I think the first time I ever read a full legal contract was doing our terms and conditions was one. And then the second one was when we went through our first like capital raise, and we were doing like, writing the contracts and this kind of thing. And yeah, I actually read through all of those. And yeah, it's interesting how like tweaks of language here and there can have like real impact on like the outcome of an agreement. So yeah, the devil really is in the detail with that stuff.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And beside all we spoke, what's in the roadmap in, I don't know, 5-10 years for Calctree?
Oh, 5-10 years. Long range. Well,
you can do one. You can do 1, 5, 10.
Okay. So I kind of view it as in like a 3-phase thing. So phase 1 for Calctree is, we're in phase 1, and what that is basically building out the platform. And I kind of touched on it before about building out this platform that's agnostic, it can ingest different bits, like different integrations, as we would call it. So currently we have built the platform, and we can integrate with spreadsheets and Python. So that's kind of like, we're getting towards the end of phase 1. And that will, I guess the crescendo of that is that in quite soon we'll release Calctree 2, which is the kind of new and improved version of that platform, which is more robust, faster, like much more advanced tech stack, which our much more professional software engineers that we've hired since Mahan and I were in it, are working on now. So that's phase one. Phase two, which is probably next year to next 3 years, maybe, let's say, that's starting to like build out more of the feature set on top of that platform. So that'll be things like version control, review modules, which allow companies to take stuff that's in the platform and understand its version history and understand where it's been used on different projects within Calctree. And review module is what it sounds like, the ability to take tools and put it through with like a customized review check, I guess, or review workflow. Also giving users the ability to like upvote calculations or like add comment threads to calculations. So on Calctree, you might see a public template that has like a comment thread below it, and you can see the history of discussion and people talking about, we've updated it to the new code changes or this kind of stuff. And then also we will be doing something around AI, sort of still working exactly on what that will look like. But that will be coming in the next 1 to 3 years, I would say, in this phase two. And then phase three, which is the kind of like, long-term vision, world domination. No, I'm just kidding. Not world domination. But hopefully at least a marketplace and supporting mechanisms for communities. So, having an environment where there's enough supply side of stuff that's been built on the platform, and then enough of a demand side through users of the platform that they are sort of match up, and you can start to see the two like pushing the platform in the directions that we can't even think of at the moment. That's the kind of the longer term vision. We really want to be active in the community as well. So one thing that we're really keen to do, and this is definitely down the track because it requires revenue and more funding. But what we really want to do is start like funding projects, like research projects and this kind of thing. So encouraging people who are operating in the different niches doing cool stuff in like sustainability or this kind of thing, like funding research projects, which are done in collaboration with Calctree, and then that outcomes of that research project are potentially templates which then get put on the Calctree marketplace as well. That's kind of like the long-term dream for the company. But for now, just getting to Calctree 2, making the platform stable, running pilot projects with companies, and making a platform that people just really love. Getting to, I guess, what in startup world you'd call product market fit. That's the aim right now.
Nice. So much coming. Love it.
Yes, lots in the horizon. I'm sure if the tech team is listening, I'm sure they're like, oh, geez, Tim.
Yeah. I'm not sure that's going to happen, team. Yeah. And you're like, it will. Yeah, it will. All right, man. I know you're a busy person. It's Friday in Melbourne. But before we wrap this up, can I ask you a couple of ping pong questions?
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Can you tell me a great AEC software?
A great AEC software? I mean, the greatest is Grasshopper, right?
Grasshopper is really good.
That's how I got started.
The next big... What?
That's how I got started in like the whole, digital AEC was like, oh, what's this Grasshopper thing? Oh, this is pretty cool. And then, that rabbit hole.
Yeah, I think we all did. It was either Dynamo or Grasshopper, and then we scaled to more complex solutions. Oh, sure. And then the next big trend in the AEC?
Is it cop out to say AI?
Well, it makes sense. Is going to change all the industry. So, if you could collaborate with any person in history, which person would you choose?
Any person in history. Tesla?
Nikola Tesla, I guess not.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. OG Tesla.
Yeah. That's a good one. And then finally, which one is your favorite building in the world, and have you ever visited?
Oh. That's a tough question. I guess it's really tough. I can't remember the name, but the main bridge in Porto in Portugal. It's kind of obscure, but
I know.
same engineer who did the Eiffel Tower, and it's the same like similar structure. I just love that bridge. We went to Porto with my partner like last year, and I spent like 4 hours just walking across that bridge. You can go across the top, down, and across the bottom. Yeah, I love that bridge.
The Dona Maria Pia Bridge.
Yes, that's the one. Classic.
Yeah, like
I
it.
probably should have said Sydney Harbour. No, that would have been more Australian of me.
What?
I should have said Sydney Harbour, but would have been
Yeah.
more Australian of me. But it's not as cool.
But it has a similar style, right? It's kind of similar. Or you could say just the Sydney Opera. That's also really cool.
Sydney Opera House, yeah,
Classic.
Sydney Opera House. I actually got a chance to do some design on that actually.
Really?
They were basically doing a refit out of the whole orchestral setup, seating arrangement and everything. And I'll never forget there was one point where we had to assess the structural capacity of the shells. And it was one of those things where it's like you kind of look into it a bit and you're like, you know what? We're just going to assume there's basically no structural capacity here, and we're going to build new structure around it. So yeah, it's a bit of a mystery, that one, but it is amazing.
Interesting. When you said I had the opportunity to design on it, I was like, you're not that old, so no, it was just
no. I was just lucky enough to be hanging around the Sydney office at Arab when they were working on the refurb for it, and got roped into doing a few sort of just like steel checks, but got to see a bit under the hood of some of the work they were doing on the existing structure, which was pretty enlightening.
That's really cool, man. That's an amazing project.
It was amazing. The guys on that project were some of the most talented engineers I ever worked with. So I was in awe of them and in awe of the project they were working on. It was pretty cool, and obviously it's a national icon. So it's it's a pretty amazing opportunity, that one.
Nice. All right, man. Thanks so much for sharing all the cool stuff you're doing for the industry. I'm looking forward to test your app, to test Calctree. And before we say goodbye to each other, can you tell everybody where they can know more about Calctree?
Yeah, definitely. So main port of call is calctree.com. That's our website, which if anyone listening is interested, there's all the information you could ever want about the platform and what we're building, about the company as well. From that, you can also find your way onto the app, where we've got like over 150 calculation templates running on the beta version of Calctree right now. So you can actually get in and have a play with the platform as well. And then, of course, LinkedIn. You can always hit us up on there if anyone's interested in having a chat about it in more detail. Reach out to me personally or anyone else in the team.
All right. Thanks so much for your time, and I hope you enjoy your Friday.
I will. Yes. Enjoy the rest of Thursday. And thanks for having me.
Thanks so much. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
See ya.
Thanks to our listeners. If you like this content, you can find past and upcoming episodes in aecworks.everse.com and at all of our Everse social media. We'd love to hear from you and recommendations for new content, so leave us a DM and we'll make sure to catch it.